my daughter-in-law said. "He looks like he crawled out of a drain," while my son stayed silent. So I removed my name from his $220,000 loan. Then he called. "Dad, what did you do? My name is Jack Pewitt. I'm 57 years old and I have held a master plumber's license in the state of Texas for 31 years. Last April, at a dinner my son threw to impress his wife's managing partner." My daughter-in-law leaned across the kitchen island and whispered to my son loud enough that I caught every word from the hallway. "Can you keep him away from David? He looks like he just crawled out of a drain." My son looked at his shoes. My son said nothing. I walked back into that living room and I smiled at every person in it for the next hour. Then I drove home. The next morning, I made 2 phone calls and sent 1 email. None of them were angry. Every single one was permanent. Before I take you back, hit that like button and subscribe. Drop a comment. Where are you watching from? And what time is it there right now? I read everyone. Now, let me take you back to Saturday, April 12th, the night I found my shirt folded into a grocery bag by the back door. My son called me on a Wednesday. He talked about the weather for 3 minutes and the Spurs for 2, which meant he was working up to something. "It's just a dinner." "Dad," he said, real casual. "Whitney's boss is coming by. No big deal." Then a pause. "Just, dress nice if you can." Another pause. "Nothing crazy, just something clean." 3 different ways of saying the same thing, like a man trying to dilute medicine into juice. I was standing in the shop, watching one of my guys pressure test a line in the lot, and I looked out at the truck at the ladder rack at the coil of flex I hadn't put away from a slab job that morning. "What time?" I asked. 7, he said then. "Dad, just something that doesn't have the company logo on it." "Okay." I said I'd see what I could do. He said thanks like a man, setting down something he'd been carrying for a while. After I hung up, I went to my closet and stood there. 2 pairs of dark jeans, 1 still good, 3 flannel shirts, a sport coat I bought for my wife's funeral in 2016 that I haven't been able to button since I put on the grief weight I never fully lost, and the work shirts. 6 of them dark grey plumbing stitched in white across the left breast. I'd been wearing some version of that shirt since 1993. I wore one to my son's high school graduation. I wore one when I taught him to change a wad joint on a leaking stack when he was 12. I ironed one that evening, which is a waste of time on polyester cotton blend. But I did it anyway, and I told myself it looked presentable. I told myself it looked like a man who worked and wasn't ashamed of it. Nobody had told me yet that being ashamed was the point. I stopped at the kitchen desk on my way out to grab my good pen and found a folder I'd been meaning to go through for 2 weeks. SBA loan documents, my son's business line of credit, $220,000. First Texas Business Bank originated 3 years ago. My signature on the cosigner line. My house listed as collateral. The house I paid off in 2014. I set the folder back and said some other time, if I had taken it with me that night, everything might have ended differently. Probably worse. My son lives in Alamo Heights, big oaks, old brick, the kind of neighborhood where the sidewalks are even and the Christmas lights are white. I drove in from the southeast side and there was still chalky dust from the Converse slab job caked in the wheel wells. I parked 2 houses down, not because I was ashamed of the truck, but because I didn't want to make a point I hadn't intended to make. I walked up with a bottle of wine, a cab, $32. The girl at the store had been patient helping me pick it, and I'd been saving a little aside since February. My daughter-in-law opened the door. She looked at the bottle, then at the shirt, and her face did something warm that didn't quite reach the eyes. "Jack, you made it." She took the wine out of my hand the way you take scissors from a toddler. "Oh, you brought something. How sweet." She carried it past the dining room and set it on the far counter behind the espresso machine. I watched her do it. On the table, there were already 5 bottles open, dark labels, the kind that come in wooden boxes. Mine sat behind the sink all night and never moved. There were 8 people in that living room. I was the only one with grease still in the creases of my knuckles, despite washing twice. The managing partner, David Kellner. 62 was the center of the room. Silver-haired, built like a former athlete. 3rd-generation commercial real estate out of Houston. His company was considering giving my son's renovation firm a contract. 15 townhouses in the Pearl District. The kind of work that changes the trajectory of a small business. My daughter-in-law was 6 months pregnant and up for managing partner herself. This dinner was the last rung of a ladder. She'd been climbing for 10 years. Her mother was there, too. I'll call her what she is. My son's mother-in-law. 60, former school teacher, pearls at a casual dinner. The kind of woman who says how charming when she means how unfortunate. She looked at my shirt when I walked in, and her first words to me. The first words she had ever said to me in 3 years of family dinners and holidays were delivered with a warm smile. "Oh, are you the one who did their kitchen backsplash?" The room laughed. Not meanly, comfortably, easily. The way a room laughs when nobody's paying close enough attention to know what was just said. And my son laughed, too. 31 years old, 6 inches tall, my mother's eyes. And he laughed. I didn't correct her fast. I don't do things fast. "No, ma'am," I said. "I'm Ryan's dad." The laughing stopped. Kellner turned and looked at me for the first time. My daughter-in-law across the room closed her eyes for exactly 1 second. That was the first time that night I watched my son choose, and watched him choose wrong. My daughter-in-law was 7 months along, a girl they'd found out in January. I'd been building a toy chest in my garage since February. Cedar I'd been saving from a teardown job in Hellatus. Hand-cut dovetails. No staples. I'd burned it into the lid with a wood burning iron and sanded it back twice until it looked like it had always been part of the wood. I hadn't told them yet. I wanted to bring it over finished, at dinner. Somebody asked about the nursery, and I saw my opening. "I've been putting something together," I said, "for the baby." A cedar chest hand built. My daughter-in-law's fork paused, then kept moving. "That is so thoughtful." She smiled at the table. "Not at me. We actually went with a full Pottery Barn set. The nursery is already done." A small laugh for the room. "But I'm sure we'll find a place for it. Find a place for it. I've been told that before in other rooms, in other ways. It means the garage. It means next to the paint cans. It means the same place they were planning to put me." Then her mother leaned in, sweet as sweet tea. "And, of course, we'll want to be thoughtful about who we include in the important moments." She touched her pearls. These early years shape so much. I set my fork down and looked at my water glass. I've been managed out of rooms before. Job sites, bid meetings, a hospital corridor in 2016 when a specialist talked past me to my wife's sister because she'd come from work in a blazer and I'd come from a crawl space on Blanco Road. You learn that a quiet man gets called back, but I had never in my life been managed out of my own bloodline. That was something new. My son caught me in the hallway around 8:30. He looked over his shoulder first, which he's been doing since he was 7 years old, and thought nobody noticed. "The loan, Dad," he said low. "You got the renewal documents?" "I got them." Whitney stressed out of her mind right now. "The partner review is in 2 weeks. Can you just sign and send them back, please?" I looked at my son. He was standing in a hallway that cost more per square foot than my shop, asking a man in a company shirt to sign something he hadn't explained because his wife needed the distraction removed. "Ryan," I said quietly, "does she know I co-signed that loan?" He didn't answer. "Does she know your plumbing permits run under my license? The dishwasher ran in the next room." Somebody laughed at something, Kellner said. I never really got around to telling her. My son said 3 years. He never got around to it. There's a thing that happens when a pipe runs hot too long without relief. Everything seems fine from the outside. Water flows, pressure holds, and the whole time the system is working against itself, finding paths it was never designed to take until it can't anymore. You can go years like that. You can go right up to the moment you can't. Okay, I said. He looked up hopeful. It broke something in me that he looked hopeful. So, you'll sign? Go on back in, I said. They'll miss you. He put his hand on my shoulder on the way past, quick, like checking a fence for current. Around 8:40, I went to wash my hands. Habit. You come out of a job and you wash before you touch anything of anybody's. On my way back down the hall, I passed the door to the mudroom and saw a paper grocery bag on the hook where my jacket should have been. My work shirt, the good one I'd ironed, the spare I'd left in the car just in case the one I was wearing got something on it, was folded inside it face down, the name tucked against the paper so you couldn't read it, sitting right next to a stack of donation items, a box fan, a set of mixing bowls, my shirt. I stood in that mudroom with the dryer ticking warm behind me. I wired their outdoor circuit the first summer they were in this house. 2 weekends, August heat, no charge. My son offered to pay. I told him not to insult me. I picked the shirt up. I turned it over. Pruitt. White letters going gray. Back in the hallway, there was a different shirt laid out on the bench. Button down, blue check, tag still on it. Size medium. I wear a large. There you are. My daughter-in-law's voice behind me. Bright and warm. I put something out for you. I just thought you might be more comfortable. I didn't turn around right away. Then I did, and I said what I said. It's a nice shirt, I told her, but it isn't mine. Try it on, she said. Go on. So, I did. I put on her shirt and I stood in that living room for the next hour and a half, with it pulling across my shoulders and the top button straining at my chest. Not one person in that room said a word about it. Not one. It was around 9:00 when Kellner found me near the window. He didn't ask me who I was. He asked my daughter-in-law, and she answered without blinking, without 1/2 second of hesitation. Wine glass in her hand on her belly. "Oh, that's Jack," she said. "He did some of the plumbing work on the house. 4 words. 4 words to take a man out of a family." The room nodded. Somebody said something about finding a good plumber these days. The conversation moved like water around a stone. I looked at my son. My son looked at his plate. I've been erased before. A hospital in 2016 when my wife was dying, and the young resident spoke to her sister because her sister had better shoes. Job sites where the GC introduced me to the client as our pipe guy. You learn to stand still while it happens. So I stood still, but Kellner stopped. He frowned, tilted his head the way a man does when something snagged on a memory. "Pruitt," he said. "Pruitt Plumbing. You did the rough-in on my Alamo Heights project." The room went a little quieter. My daughter-in-law's shoulders came up an inch. "Yes, sir," I said. 2012. He looked at me, really looked at the shirt that didn't fit at the hands. "Huh?" he said. That was all. "Huh?" He turned back to his wine, and my daughter-in-law started talking about the renovation timeline, fast and bright, and she did not stop for 4 full minutes. I didn't understand it that night. At 9:15, I went to the kitchen for water. The door was half open. My son and his wife were at the island with their backs to me. She had his arm. "Can you keep him away from David?" she said. "He looks like he just crawled out of a drain. My son, who I put through UT. My son, whose truck I sold in 2019, told him I got a better deal on a newer one," which was a lie, and used the money to cover his equipment deposit when the business loan didn't fully fund. My son said, "I know. I'm sorry. I'll take care of it. Take care of it like a slow drain, like a failed fitting, like a punch list item. I stood in that doorway for 3 seconds, and here's what I want you to understand, because it surprised me. 2. I wasn't angry. I got clear. When you open a manifold that's been running wrong, and the pressure drops, there's a moment everything goes quiet in your head, and you can see exactly which line is the problem. No guessing, no feeling, just the pipe. I walked in. They turned. Her face went white. His went the color of drywall mud. Neither of them said a word. I set my glass on the counter. I smiled at her. I meant it in the way I could. I said, "Of course." Then I took off her shirt, folded it, set it on the island between them, tag still on. I went out through the mudroom, picked my own shirt out of that grocery bag, put it on, buttoned every button, and walked out the front door. Nobody followed. They thought. Of course meant I agreed. 31 years in the trades teaches you one thing above everything else. You never argue with pressure, you find the shutoff. I got home at 10:40. I didn't slam anything. I made coffee 10:00 at night. That's what I do before an early call-out, and something in me had already decided I was on a call-out. I sat at the kitchen table. The SBA folder was right where I'd left it. I opened it. First Texas Business Bank, business line of credit, $220,000. Co-signer Jack Root collateral. The house I was sitting in paid off in full since 2014. My son's renovation company had been in business 3 years. Thin margins. He needed the line to cover payroll and material deposits between project draws. Underneath the loan agreement was a renewal packet and a paragraph I'd read twice before, without actually reading it. Co-signer may petition for release upon annual renewal, provided written notice is submitted no fewer than 45 days prior to renewal date. Renewal date, June 1st, 45 days prior. April 17th, 5 days from now. I read it 4 times, set the folder back by the salt shaker, went to bed. I slept 8 hours without getting up once. Best night I'd had in a year. In the morning, I made a list on the back of a work order. 3 things. Monday at 15 a.m., I called Della. She's been at First Texas for 22 years. I ran the new branch's plumbing in 2001. She was a teller then. She's a senior loan officer now, and she still calls me Mr. Pewitt when other people are in the room. Miles, I've been trying to reach Ryan about this renewal for she started. I'm calling about it now. I said, walk me through what happens if I submit a co-signer release. Walk me through it like I'm a stranger, not someone you know. A pause. Then she did. She's good at her job without a co-signer with my collateral profile. House free and clear, shop owned outright. 31 years of clean payment history. Not one late entry. The bank would have to re-underwrite the note on the company's own merits. 2 and 1.5 years of operation. Thin margins. No fixed assets beyond equipment. The line of credit would freeze automatically on release, pending review. The review process, 6 to 8 weeks minimum. What about the operating draws? I asked. My son ran payroll out of that line every 2 weeks. 6 employees. Frozen same day. Della said, automatically. It's in the instrument. I sat in my truck and watched a kid across the street rake gravel. Is it legal? All of it. Jack. Her chair creaked. It's not just legal. It's your right. You've had this right for 3 years. And frankly, I told him so when he brought me the original paperwork. Send me the release form, I said. Today, and Dela. Whatever interest is still outstanding on the principal. Bill it to me personally. I don't want the note penalized. Silence. That's about $3,200, Jack. Then it's $3,200? She was quiet a moment. What is going on? I looked out the windshield. I'm removing my name, I said. Not my good wishes. There's a difference, and it matters. She was quiet again. Then she said something I've thought about every day since. Good, she said. It's about time. 2 more things on the list. Norbert has been my insurance broker since 1997. He answers his own phone and keeps everything on paper. Jack Pewitt, what did you flood? Nothing yet. Norbert, I need you to remove Pewitt and Associates from my group policy today. The line went quiet. Here's what my son's wife did not know. When my son opened his renovation company 3 years ago, he priced his own general liability. A two-man shop with no loss history gets underwritten like a teenager buying a sports car. $14,000 a year minimum. He didn't have it, so I had Norbert fold him into my group. Pewitt Plumbing, 31 years, 0 claims, not one incident. My son wrote my record and paid less than $3,000 a year. I carried the difference and never said a word, because saying it out loud turns a gift into a debt. If I pull him, Norbert said carefully. He writes his own policy. Underwriting is 6 to 8 weeks if nobody sneezes. That sounds right. His certificate of insurance lapses the day I file. Every commercial contract his company has requires a valid COI before execution. He can't sign anything. Jack, not one thing. I know what a SOI is. Norbert, I've been handing them to general contractors since Bush was in office. A long breath. You want me to sit on this? File it this afternoon. He filed it, somewhere in a contractor compliance database. A green box turned red before sundown. The third thing on the list was the one I'd been putting off. I called the Texas State Board of Plumbing Examiners and filed to remove myself as Master Plumber of Record for Pewitt and Associates renovations. In Texas, any company performing work that requires plumbing permits, which is almost any renovation job, has to have a licensed Master Plumber of Record on file. My son isn't licensed, never needed to be as long as my name was on the paperwork, without a Master of Record. His company cannot pull permits. Without permits, they cannot pass inspections. Without inspections, nothing closes. Nothing closes. Nobody gets paid. I'd been the ground the whole company stood on, and none of us had ever said it out loud. That was Monday. By Thursday, my phone hadn't rung once from my son's direction. I went back to work. That's the part nobody tells you about something like this. There's no music. You get up at 5:30 and you pull jobs. You eat a sandwich in the cab with the radio on. You come home. My son texted Tuesday. Hey, Dad, everything okay? You left early Saturday? I looked at it for 10 minutes and typed back, everything's fine, son, and I wasn't lying to him. That's what got me. For the first time in 3 years, everything actually was fine. I stopped waking up at 2:00 in the morning, running someone else's numbers. On Wednesday, my daughter-in-law posted photographs from the dinner party. 11 of them. The table, the bottles, the light through the windows, Kellner laughing, her mother with her pearls. I went through all 11. I am not in a single image, not a shoulder, not an elbow, not a reflection. I was in that room for 2 hours. I saved the last photo to my phone, not for evidence, because I knew a night was coming when I'd go soft. I'm his father. That night always comes, and I wanted something to look at when it did. On Friday, I did something I haven't done in 30 years. I drove to the community center on the east side and signed up for a woodworking class. Tuesday evenings, 6 weeks. First time in my life I built something just because I wanted to. 19 days after the dinner party, my phone rang at 4:50 in the afternoon. My son. His voice was in pieces before he finished saying my name. Dad. The bank froze the line. Payroll is Friday. Rodriguez's wife just had twins last month. Dad. What did his voice cracked? What did you do? I signed a form, I said. Same way you did in 2022. You can't just pull out. That's not I can. Paragraph 7 of the co-signer agreement. Della will walk you through it. Ask her. She'll tell you what she told me 3 years ago. Silence. An office phone ringing somewhere behind him. Nobody picking it up. then quieter. Is this about the dinner? I closed my eyes and sat with that a second. No, son, it was never about the dinner. I kept it level. It's about the word take care of it. You told your wife you'd take care of me. Not talk to me. Not stand next to me. Take care of me. Like a slow drain. Like something on a punch list. Nothing on the line. You took care of me, I said. I'm taken care of. He made a sound I'd heard one time before at his mother's grave when he was 11, and I didn't know what to do with either of us. Dad, please, what do I tell Whitney? And here's the part I'd take back if you gave me the chance. I'd still say it was fair. Tell her whatever you want, I said. You've had 3 years of practice. I hung up on my own son. I sat on an overturned bucket in a half-finished utility room in Schertz, Texas, and I put my head in my hands, and my hands smelled like flux and copper pipe. 12 minutes later, my phone rang, number I didn't know. Houston area code, Jack, warm, familiar, like we were old friends. This is Whitney. I think there may have been a misunderstanding at the dinner. I want to clear the air. I didn't say anything. Jack, I'm 6 months pregnant. Her voice softened exactly the way a person's voice softens when they've decided softness is a strategy. I'm under unbelievable pressure right now. The partner review is in 2 weeks, and now you're doing this to us, to Ryan, to your grandchild. I let the silence stretch. She waited. I just think, she said, and her voice went gentle as a knife, that a grandfather who would use a situation like this, a grandfather who would do what you're doing, that isn't the kind of presence I want around a baby. There it was. I stood up off the bucket, walked out of that utility room into the late afternoon sun. Whitney, I said, yes, you told my son to take care of me. You put my shirt in a grocery bag next to your donation box. You laid out a shirt 2 sizes too small and watched me wear it open for 2 hours. And you introduced me to the most important client your firm has ever had, as the man who did some plumbing work on the house. Silence. I didn't do anything to you, I said. I stopped doing things for you. That's not the same thing. It's the most important difference there is, and you'd better learn it before that baby is old enough to watch how you treat people. She hung up. 6 days later, my daughter-in-law made the mistake that finished it. She sent an email to First Texas Business Bank and copied it in a critical miscalculation to Kellner Development's office because she was trying to explain why the renovation contract review was delayed. The email stated that her father-in-law, an elderly tradesman, had withdrawn from a financial arrangement without fully understanding the implications, and that the family was working with him and his physician to address the situation. I don't have a physician. I've got a dentist in Kirby and a bad left knee. Della called me the next morning. Jack, are you sitting down? I was in a crawl space. Get out of the crawl space. I got out. She read me the email. I had her read it twice. Elderly tradesman, cognitive difficulties working with his physician. The bank rejected it in under 30 minutes, Della said. You signed in front of me. I notarized it personally. It was never going anywhere. I know. Miles, are you okay? I walked to my truck and got in and did not start the engine. I sat in that cab for 45 minutes. Here's what I want to be clear about. Up to that afternoon, a reasonable person could have called me petty, could have said I went too far, that I let pride drive me, that I should have talked it through. I'd have taken that. I'd have sat with it. But I hold a master plumber's license issued by the state of Texas. 31 years, 0 violations, 0 claims. 6 men feed their families based on my judgment on a live system. She could have called me stubborn. She could have called me cruel. She could have said I was wrong. All of that would have been survivable. She told a federally insured bank in writing that I was not in my right mind, and she sent it to David Kellner's office. 4 days later, Kellner called me directly. I was in the parking lot of a supply house in Converse. Mr. Proit, he said, my compliance team flagged a lapse in your son's company's certificate of insurance, and your name was removed from the master plumber of record file. A pause. But you were in the original reference package for the Pearl District contract. That's between them and you, Mr. Kellner. It would be another pause, except your daughter-in-law sent an email to my office suggesting you may not have fully understood the documents you signed. I didn't say anything. Mister, I've been in this business for 37 years. His voice was even, no warmth, no cruelty, just straight. I'd like to understand what I'm actually looking at. Are you available Thursday morning? I said yes. He asked me one more question before he hung up. I said yes to that one, too. And that second yes is why. 9 days later, I was standing in a conference room on the 14th floor of a building on Commerce Street that I had never been inside in my work shirt, with compound residue in the creases of my knuckles that I had not bothered to scrub out because I'd come straight off a slab job in Universal City, and I saw no reason to pretend otherwise. Here's who was in that room: Kellner and 2 of his project people, a lone officer from First Texas, my son's wife at the head of the table, composed in white with slides on the screen, her mother in the corner pearls at 9 in the morning, arms folded, my son at the far end, the color of joint compound, and then the door opened, every head turned. I walked in, and you could hear my boots on that carpet. I pulled a chair out across from Kellner. He stood up, 62 years old, chairman of the largest private real estate portfolio in Central Texas, and he pushed back his chair, so the legs barked on the floor, and crossed the room and put out his hand. He took mine, compound and all. He did not let go quickly. He did not wipe his palm afterward. I watched for it. Thank you for coming, he said. Sit here next to me. I looked down the table at my daughter-in-law. She didn't understand yet. She had about 60 more seconds. Kellner didn't make a speech. He just started talking the way a man talks when he's already made up his mind and is explaining it for the record. Before we get into the contract review, I want to introduce someone. Some of you have met him. He looked straight at my daughter-in-law when he said the next part. Mr. Pewitt holds a master plumber's license in the state of Texas. 31 years. He did the rough-in on 3 of my company's properties, including the Alamo Heights project in 2012. He paused. In 2012, he found a supplier overcharge on one of my jobs, wafting $900. My own accountant hadn't caught it. My project manager hadn't caught it. He flagged it and returned it. Nobody breathed. I have been trying to hire his company for over a decade. Kellner let that land. Last week, he finally said yes. He turned to my daughter-in-law. Mrs. Pewitt, your email to this office stated that Mr. Pewitt may be experiencing age-related confusion that affected his judgment when he signed the co-signer release. She opened her mouth. Nothing came. I've spoken with him twice this week. He negotiated a scope of work agreement with my contracts team, line by line. He caught an arithmetic error in our payment schedule that my own people missed. He set both hands flat on the table. So, I have one question, and I would like a clear answer. Which one of you is lying to me? Nobody moved, not one person in that room. And then my son stood up. His hands were shaking. He pressed them flat on the table so the shaking would stop. He didn't look at his wife once. He told them everything. He told them about the grocery bag, about the shirt set out in the wrong size, about how he laughed when her mother asked if his father was there about the backsplash. He told them that his father had co-signed his business loan, licensed his company, and carried his insurance for 3 years without being asked and without saying a word. He told them his father exercised a legal right that he'd had for 3 years and hadn't used until they gave him a reason to. I'm not asking for the contract, my son said. His voice was steady now, or close to it. I know where this is going. I've made my pizza with it. He looked at me. I'm asking you to know who my father is. My daughter-in-law tried to salvage it. She was composed. I'll give her that. All the way to the end. She was 5 or 6 months pregnant and pale, in front of 6 people who were about to decide what she was. I think everyone is overreacting to a private family matter. Nobody said anything. This is a personal disagreement being brought into a professional setting. Kellner looked at her for a moment. Then he said 3 things, and he said them quietly. Mrs. Pruitt, you did not call it a private matter when you sent an email to 11 recipients, including my office. He paused. You described a licensed professional as mentally incompetent in writing to a federally insured bank. Another pause. That is not a family disagreement. That is a liability. She started to speak. Hallowell standards require I respond to that documentation. You will not be part of the Kellner account. He picked up his water glass and drank, and for the first time all morning. I opened my mouth. My daughter-in-law turned and looked at me, and I found when I got there that I wasn't angry at her. I want that on the record. There was no satisfaction in it. I was 57 years old, tired in the way that goes bone deep, and I had exactly one thing left to say. Whitney. Yes, you were right about one thing. She waited. I did embarrass you. Her eyes went wet. I never understood why. I said, not for 1 minute of my whole life did I understand how a man who built something with his hands could embarrass anybody. I stood up. I buttoned my shirt cuff. Not until I watched you try to explain me away to a room full of people who already knew my name. Here's what it cost, and I'll give you the numbers, because numbers don't lie, and I've never trusted a story that wouldn't show them. My daughter-in-law did not make managing partner. HR opened a file, not for the family situation, but for transmitting false statements about an individual's mental competency to a financial institution. Written reprimand partner track, suspended 18 months. Her mother resigned quietly from the board of the Alamo Heights Neighborhood Association. Several of the women on that board had used Poet plumbing. 2 of them still had my refrigerator magnet. My son laid off 2 of 6 employees and drove to each of their houses to tell them in person. He moved his office from a co-working space in the Pearl District to a spare bedroom in his house. He sold one of the work trucks. He did not ask me for $1. Not then, not since. My company signed the Kellner electrical and plumbing package for the Commons build. $1.6 million, a 4-year agreement. I hired 3 more plumbers, 2 of them out of the apprenticeship program at the Union Hall, who'd been sitting idle for months. I bought back my old service truck, the one I'd sold in 2019 to cover my son's equipment deposit. I told him I'd gotten a deal on a newer one. My old foreman buddy had kept it all 3 years. Said he figured I'd come looking eventually. It had 240,000 mi on it, and a dent in the passenger door from a parking lot in 2014. I paid what he asked and didn't negotiate. My granddaughter was born in May. Nobody called me. I found out 2 days later when my son texted me a photo. Small red face, hospital blanket, his hand wrapped around her fingers. The caption said, Ada Grace Pruitt. I sat at my kitchen table and stayed there a long time with the phone in my hand. I didn't call. A man who says what he means and then calls 2 days later has said nothing at all. On the 5th day, someone knocked my daughter-in-law. A lone coat opened the baby in a carrier on her chest. She looked like she hadn't slept since April. She didn't apologize first. My father was a pipe fitter, she said. Her voice was flat, the way voices go when they've been held tight for a long time and finally let out. He died on a job site in Beaumont when I was 9. My mother spent the next 30 years telling people we were from somewhere else, that he had been something else. She threw out his union card. She told me, from the time I was little, if you ever let anyone see where you actually came from, they will use it against you. She looked at me. I did to you exactly what she spent my whole childhood doing to him, and I made my husband watch me do it. She wasn't asking for forgiveness. She said so. She was asking if she could come in. I stepped aside. She put the baby in my arms. Ate a Grace Pewitt, 8 lbs, and some change, red and furious and entirely uninterested in any of what any of us had been through. She grabbed my index finger, the one with the scar from a pipe cutter in 1998, and she held on like she meant it. I stood in my kitchen holding my granddaughter, and I told my daughter-in-law how this was going to work. 4 things. She nodded at each one when I got to the third one, that I would be in this child's life, not on a guest list, not selectively, as a presence that belongs there, and that this was not something she gave me, but something I had. Her jaw tightened. She nodded. When I got to the 4th, that if she ever again told anyone, a bank or a doctor or a neighbor, that I was not in my right mind, I would walk out of this family without a word of warning, and they would not see me again. She started to cry. She did not make a sound doing it. That told me more about her childhood than anything her mother had ever said. "Sit down," I said. "Coffee's on." The toy chest went over the following weekend. Cedar, hand-cut dovetails. Pewitt burned into the lid. I carried it up the stairs. Was myself and my son did not offer to help, which was the right call. The Pottery Barn set went to the garage. My daughter-in-law carried it there herself. I didn't ask her to. Her mother never apologized. That woman will take the words she owes me to her grave and plant something pretty on top of them. But she came to Thanksgiving. She brought a green bean casserole, not the kind from a recipe card in a nice mansion, the kind with canned cream of mushroom and the French's onions on top. The way people made it when they couldn't afford anything fancier. The way you learn to make it in a kitchen with linoleum floors when butter is a luxury. I had 2 servings. She watched me take the second one. Her chin moved. She looked away fast and started clearing plates that weren't empty yet. That was all she had. I took it. My son's business is smaller. 3 people now, a home office, a truck with a ladder rack. He turned down 2 commercial bids this year and took houses instead. Real houses for families who have never hired a contractor and didn't think they were allowed to. In Converse, in Floresville, in little towns where nobody's ever asked what kind of tile they actually wanted because they assumed they couldn't afford to have an opinion. He's good at it, better than he ever was at the other thing. Happier. Anybody who knows him can see it. Della got a bottle of scotch from me at Christmas. She sent a card back with 4 words. "You should have done this sooner. Della, last September." I texted my son, "Bring the baby." He drove out at noon. Ada on his chest in a carrier, hard hat sitting sideways on her head because it was too big. I came down off a 2nd-floor rough-in on the Kellner site. Wiped my hands on my jeans, which never works. I've been doing it for 30 years, and it never works. And I took off my company shirt. I didn't hand it to him. I put it over his shoulders, draped it the way you'd put a coat on a man who just got some hard news. "Hold that a minute," I said. He stood there in the afternoon sun, concrete dust on the ground around him, rebar stacked behind him, his daughter against his chest, and my name across his back. "It's heavier than it looks," he said. "Yeah," I said. "I know." His shoulders started to go. 31 years old on a job site in the middle of the day, in front of 8 men who all saw it, and not one of them said a single word because half of them are fathers, and the other half still have one. I put my hand on the back of his neck. "Yeah," I said again. "I know." I gave it a minute. Then I reached over and took the shirt back off his shoulders. "All right," I said. "I've got work." I put it on, buttoned the cuffs, went back up. The sun was dropping behind the crane, and the light came in long and orange through the openings where the glass hadn't gone in yet, across the left breast. The stitching is cracked now. 31 years of crawl spaces and slab jobs and standing water and tight quarters will do that. The white's gone to a kind of pale gray. The letters are thinner than they were, but you can still read it. Prove it. I never need a room full of people to recognize it. I just needed the people in my own house to stop pretending it wasn't there. They asked me to make myself smaller. So, I got very quiet, and when the dust settled, the only name still on anything that mattered was mine. That's the whole story. Now. I want yours, not in your head, in the comments where I can read it. What's your version of that work shirt? The thing somebody asked you to hide, your accent, your job, your truck, your father's name. Tell me what it was. Tell me whether you ever put it back on. If any part of this landed somewhere real, hit the like button and subscribe. And if you want to hear what happened when Kellner's team found out about the email before I did, that story is in the description. Go on, I'll be here.